Hey guys, Modulus the Gamer here. That's Modulus the Gamer on YouTube and Twitch, and always Dizzy on Lichess. I received a message early this morning from a user who says, I was just curious if it would be possible for you to do a video on how exactly you use the analysis board. I don't mean like how to put a game in there and click through the moves, but like exactly what the analysis is saying. I find myself just clicking through the moves, then it would say blunder, play this instead. Am I supposed to remember that variation or have a look at what the move is actually doing? I know that comes down to my own personal chess understanding, but for example, one of my games said that castling was a mistake, yet I don't know why. I didn't leave anything hanging, and there was no checkmate threat. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is if you could do a video on exactly what the analysis is telling you. What is the difference between an inaccurate move and a blunder and a mistake? How deeply should I consider the various variations? Okay, I think that's a pretty good question and a good idea for a video. So thank you for sending me that request. I've had one student in the past that asked me pretty much the very same question. How does the analysis work? And what am I supposed to be looking for? What does center pawns mean? And so on. So yeah, great question. So this request was made by this user here. So I think it would make sense to just look over one of his games in the analysis screen. So let's look at, this is only 11 moves. Let's just take a look at a longer move. How about this one right here? Okay, so first, I should say that most chess players will recommend when you are analyzing a game, so after you finish a game and you want to analyze it, that you do it without an engine first. I understand the benefits of doing this, although I would admit that I don't do this as often as I should. In fact, I don't do it too often. I was doing it for a while, but I just found that it took so much time up. I would recommend that you do this though, if you have the discipline to do so. It basically takes a lot longer to do this because you are having to look over everything yourself, and then you do it with the engine afterwards. But again, if you analyze the game, so if you just go over the game, not in the analysis screen, but just after the game is over, you just go over the moves, and you basically just go over the game and see what you could have improved. If you made a mistake, you can go and figure out why it was a mistake and how you could have played better. So the benefits of doing it without an engine is that, first of all, since you're doing the work yourself with your brain, it will help you memorize it and remember those particular issues better, because it's just the way that the brain works and the synapses link and all of that stuff. It's just kind of generally agreed that that is the better way to do things. However, I think it's a bit understated just how much analyzing with the computer is. That's mainly, when I analyze my games, I mainly just do it through Stockfish and the engine, because it'll tell you immediately where your mistakes were, immediately what the best moves were. And what I do is I don't just blindly look at those suggestions. I will look at where I screwed up, and then I will pinpoint and try to figure out why it was a mistake and why a different move was better. So I think that kind of, when you look at it with an engine, I think it's fine to do it with an engine, and not do it yourself. Do it by yourself first, as long as when you find those little points, when you find those mistakes and you find moves that you missed, as long as you figure out with your own brain why those things were better or worse, then I think it's fine. Okay, so I'm using Lichess as an example because that's the main site I play on. So so just for beginners, when you click on a game here, after the game is over, you have the option of running a computer analysis here. You can also do the little button. You can't see it on my screen right now, but just below this, you can also look at the move times. this is also useful. You can see how long you spent on a particular move. This is really good if you want to control and improve your basically how well your time management, your clock management. You can see how long you spent on a particular move. Maybe you find out that you spent too much time on the opening or in the end game or on a specific move. Okay, but so you can run the computer analysis. Now I do this fairly often. I do this on almost every game that I analyze, but I don't do it for. So what this will do is Stockfish and Lichess servers will actually run through the entire game and then kind of give you a summary snapshot of the whole game as a whole. And it will, if I remove my webcam here for a second, when this finishes calculating, and it will start from the end to the front, so you're gonna have to wait for it to finish processing. Depends how long your game is, but generally this will take about 1 minute. And then it will show the number of inaccuracies, mistakes, blunders, and average center pawn loss for each side. But don't look at that until it finishes calculating. And then it will also show a graph of the average, basically the evaluation in center pawns over time by move. And that's the main reason that I use this feature, because this is just a really quick way to find out where you made mistakes and so on, instead of going through the move list here. But that's the other thing that running the analysis does, is it will be next to every move. It's going to have an evaluation next to it. In addition, there's going to be color codes and little comments on certain moves where there are inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders. So for example, all inaccuracies are blue, light colored blue that you can kind of scroll down. Blunders are red and mistakes are something. I'm not sure what color mistakes are. Oh, for some reason the mistakes aren't even, oh, there we go. They're orange. You can also click on these links to jump to the exact mistake or blunder, and you can just click again and it'll go to the next one. So that's a quick way of doing it. I'm just gonna, well, I'll leave my webcam off for a second. And this little table here is useful to get a good idea of how well you did. You can see, okay, you made 2 blunders, 2 mistakes, inaccuracies. Okay, so before I get into that, I will explain, put webcam back on here. Ooh, 1 second. There we go. I will explain what a center pawn is. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, a center pawn is basically a unit of measurement in chess that is used to measure how strong a position is. So any point of time in a chess game. So generally, like, you know how one pawn, like a pawn is worth kind of 1, a knight is worth like 3, bishop like 3.25, rook is 5, and so on. So a center pawn is just a very small unit of measurement where a pawn is 1, a center pawn is 1/100th of a pawn. So 100 center pawns is roughly equal to 1 pawn. So what that means is, let's say, like on White's first move, White went here. If we turn on the engine, it's saying minus 0.6. That's the evaluation of the current position, and that means that this is 60 center pawns. So if it was -1, it would be 100 center pawns, or roughly equivalent to, it would be like saying, so this is 0.6. So what this means is Stockfish evaluates this position, and since it's a negative number, this means that it's in favor of black, positive numbers in favor of white. So it's saying that this position is roughly half a pawn better for black. That's roughly what it means. So it's saying that this is a really poor move, poor position for white, a pawn in front of the king, and it's saying that roughly this is equivalent to half a pawn better for black. If we just made a few more moves and like this, now we can see that it's saying -1.9 or -2. So also you could say 200 centipawns. So now that is saying that this is basically as if black were up 2 pawns, because the position is so much better. Even though technically black is not up any material, that's just the evaluation of the position. That black is roughly up 2 pawns just because his position is so much better. If white were to go here and then we take the rook, now we're up 550 centipawns. Okay, so now that you understand that, that's just what this chart refers to. So the higher the graph, the greater the centipawn. And when it goes into black, that means this is winning for black. And if it goes up here, it's winning for white. So I don't know the exact way that they calculate this. Let me turn off the webcam again. But as a very rough rule of thumb, I would estimate that a mistake is probably like maybe 70 centipawns or so. So like 0.7 in evaluation. So if you made a move that is like 70 centipawns that worsened your position, that would be probably a mistake. A blunder may be something like 100 centipawns or 150 centipawns, something like that. Again, I don't know the exact numbers they use, but that's a rough idea. For inaccuracies, I would largely ignore that, because if you're watching this video, then you basically the inaccuracies just mean a very, very small inaccuracy. It just means like inaccuracy, you might be talking about 20 or 30 centipawns. It's virtually, it's a very small, slight, it's a move that is, maybe there were probably better moves available, but we're talking a very small fraction. So generally, you should not even worry about inaccuracies, because even like super grandmasters are going to have inaccuracies in every game. So personally, I don't pay attention to inaccuracies at all. You want to be looking at your mistakes and your blunders. Okay, so as I was saying, I use this graph a lot because it's very useful to know where I screwed up. I can just very quickly, instead of going move by move, as in this game, I can just, so since we're pretending that we're black, because that's the person that asked this question was black, we can see that black kind of screwed up around move 10. So we could just quickly jump to move 10 if we were in a hurry and we just want to see where we really screwed up. And then we could just go to move 10 because that's when the chart jumps to white's favor. It goes from -1, you can see here, -1 to plus 0.6. So that's a 160 centipawn difference there. Also, it looks like this is another key point where this was an equal position. At this point, -0.2 is pretty much equal. And then black made a move and it became +1. That's a pretty big difference. So there's a mistake there as well. Those are the two key points if I was in a hurry that I would look at. If I had more time or it was a more interesting game, I would go move by move. I tend to do that in the opening anyways, because I really like to refine my opening. So so we can see here that white made a move, and this is a pretty standard opening, played decently. We can see that the evaluation is pretty equal for both sides. 0.2 is nothing, like that's just equal, right? If the evaluation shifts to let's say like 0.8, then white is starting to get a somewhat noticeable improvement. But like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, even 0.6 is pretty much equal. So we can see that this move here, for example, that white played, knight d2. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on the evaluations. I should be talking about other things, but you can just see that this shifts from 0.2 to -0.6. So that's actually an 80 centipawn difference. So for white, this is, I would actually say that this is a mistake. Stockfish says it's an inaccuracy, but that is a fairly big jump, an 80 centipawn jump in the other direction. So white should be rethinking this move after they play it. Okay, so I'm not going to be talking about evaluation and centipawns anymore. I think I've covered that. So there's some other things I wanted to talk about. So in Lichess, you can see up here that, first of all, this is using an engine called Stockfish. And if you click the little hamburger button in the corner, you can actually set how strong it is, how much percentage of your computer is being used to calculate. You can see that I have this maxed to 4 out of 4 CPU. You can, if you could set this lower or higher depending on your specific needs and wants. I personally set off best move arrow and evaluation gauge, and I put infinite analysis as on, which it just means that it will keep analyzing forever. For as long as your computer is on, it could calculate for like 5 hours, and then I also set multiple lines to maximum of 5 out of 5. What that does is it shows more than one line here. So if I set this to just 1, which may be default, you're only going to see 1 line up here. And I definitely encourage everyone to set this to at least 3, or at least 2. I mean, 1 is silly. You want to be seeing the other lines at a glance so you can see the evaluations of all of the different moves that Stockfish is recommending. You can also see that it's showing depth 21. That just means like how many moves ahead Stockfish is looking and processing. When I am building a repertoire, I will generally, on my local machine, I will let Stockfish run to like depth 44, or usually to like between 40, at least 40. I will let it run to usually at least depth 40, because I want it to get a really good understanding of the position before I base something in my repertoire off of it. The nodes per second is just basically how fast your computer is calculating. Mine is currently doing 2,500 per second, which is fairly fast. Your phone may be something like 300, to give you an idea of the difference. This will just toggle the engine on or off. So if you wanted to analyze this without the engine, you can just turn it off. There's also this little handy feature, which I've been using more often lately, which is called the show threat feature. And I never used this before, but it's actually kind of handy. Basically, all it does is, so if we make white make a move, so these are the recommended moves for black right now, A5, D6, and so on. But if you hit this button, or there's a keyboard shortcut of X, it will basically so for the last person that moves. So let's just say let's say black moved here. If you hit the X button, it's going to show what the next move. If black could get a free move, what his idea is. So what is the threat? So C6. So if black can move again, C6 is the threat, or maybe knight takes C4 is the threat. It's a useful little feature that I've been using more often. I don't use it. I'll use it maybe like once in every 3 games. I'll use it, but nice little feature there. Okay, so basically, I will go move by move, and I will be judging the shift. So black is doing fine here. I'll ignore anything where I'm winning. It's really when I make mistakes that I'm really focusing on. So we can see here that there's a shift. I'm pointing at the screen as if you could see my finger, but you can see here on the graph, I'll use the cursor, that we go from -1 to plus 0.6. So this is really a key point where I would be focusing on, because we're going from -1.1, black is winning. Black is basically up a pawn here, or 110 centipawns, and then suddenly white is winning after we made this move. Now white is up plus 0.5, 0.7. So I would be looking here and seeing like why is this a mistake? So after we made it, then we can see it's suggesting, okay, E takes D5 for black, and it's saying that white is a little bit better here. If we go back, we can see that what Stockfish would have liked to have played instead of D5 is bishop takes C3. So it's suggesting this, and then if white takes back, we can see that there's an undefended pawn here. So we would be up a free pawn. So removing the defender there. So again, if we just go back, this is only defended once by the knight. So if we simply take away the knight, remove the defender, doesn't matter how white takes. It takes with a pawn, takes with a bishop. It doesn't matter because this is undefended. We're up a free pawn. So that's really where this is useful. We can see that there's a jump in evaluation here. And then we can see that that's the mistake. So this was really, it's a mistake because it was a missed opportunity. It's not a mistake. It's not like we lost a pawn. It's a mistake because it was a missed opportunity. We could have won a pawn. We could have won a free pawn here. So that's an idea of how you can use analysis to your advantage. So again, we missed that we could have removed the defender. This pawn is only defended once, and if we remove the defender, we can simply win a pawn here. Now, I guess you could look, if you wanted to look forward, couldn't white just take this pawn here? Well, if you keep analyzing, Stockfish is recommending queen a5 check. Then there's a fork on the bishop and the king, a double attack. So, and then after here, we're going to win we're going to win the pawn again, because after we take and takes back, we can go check and we're up a pawn again. So you can go down a kind of a rabbit's hole of moves if you keep following the engine, but very useful. So that's just one example. If we keep moving on, I won't go move by move, but let's take a look here where we gain equality. So this evaluation is again pretty even. And then black played rook d6. It shifts from -0 to about +1. And Stockfish is saying that this allows this check. And if we move the king, he moves the... So my guess here is that, like, why don't they just... There's a rook here, so we could win the exchange. He could take here, so I guess that was black's concern, but my guess is that we might end up a pawn. We can probably do a desperado there. So anyways, Stockfish is suggesting the best move by far is bishop takes rook. And so if this was black's concern, oh, I see. So we create another threat. Yeah, so this is it's not taking the pawn, it's creating another threat. We save the bishop and we attack the rook, and this is attacked. So that's why Stockfish likes taking the rook first. So if I just go back there, it doesn't like this move because we could have won an exchange by taking the rook first. If white takes in, we're simply up the exchange. We can just defend our rook. And if white takes the rook, then we've got this bishop d3, creating another threat, defending our bishop, and having another piece under attack. We're basically up the exchange here. So that's another key point. And then there's another move here. We'll do the big shift, you can see, between here and here. When now black took, but white is ahead apparently after I'm trying to see quite why, but bishop d3, I'm wondering why. I guess because we're down so many pawns already. So it's recommending, instead of taking the rook, because it doesn't want to, I guess black doesn't want to, computer doesn't want to be trading because we're actually down, 2 pawns? So you probably want to avoid trades. So then it's recommending like rook b6 or rook c6. So that's the other thing about analyzing your games. The computer is only going to give you recommended moves by evaluation. It's not going to tell you why. It's not going to write out in text, oh, you should have done this. You don't want to be trading material because you're down 2 pawns. You want pieces on the board. So that would be something that why you don't want to purely just go after, you don't want to just purely look at the moves. Okay, rook c6, I should just play rook c6. You have to think why. You got to ask yourself, why rook c6? And that's where you can really improve on your analysis, when you always have to ask why and answer why. Not just ask why, but ask why and then answer why. So I didn't look into I just very quickly off the top of my head, that's my assumption, is that it doesn't want to be trading because, you're down material. If you're trading material, then all you're doing is reducing things to a simpler endgame for your opponent. The opponent is already up 2 pawns, and the opponent has 3 passed pawns, so you probably want to keep things complex and keep things on the board instead of trading down. So if this was me, if this was my game, I would look at it closer. But if this was my conclusion, I would tell myself and reinforce to myself, okay, I'm actually down here. I shouldn't be trading material unless it benefits me. And this doesn't actually benefit me. If anything, it simplifies the position and benefits my opponent. So in the future, I should try to not trade when down material. Okay. And if we just keep moving, there's another mistake by black, which is it's actually a blunder, knight d3. Because we're just dropping a whole bishop here. So that's just a huge blunder by black. Pretty self-explanatory there. I mean, our bishop is under attack. We could simply just retreat it somewhere, you know. So big blunder there. And then I usually go quickly. Like I don't analyze every single move. Unless it's a really important game, like it was an over-the-board tournament game or something, then I'll analyze every single move. But it takes a long time to analyze, so I'm not gonna in an internet game, in an online game, I'm not gonna be like where I am here, like move 37. When the evaluation is pretty much the same move by move, I will usually not analyze it, unless it's something interesting, like an interesting end game or something that calls out to me. But generally, I am looking at big shifts in evaluation. I'm going to be focusing my attention there, and mistakes that I make, I am analyzing that. And then in the opening, that's more of a personal choice, but I spend a lot of time analyzing the opening. I feel that gives so many dividends down the road. So I generally analyze the opening. Like one last thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm sure I've missed a lot of things already, which I'll probably regret after I make this video. One last thing I forgot to talk about is the database or the book moves. So by default, it might not show it, but how you enable it is you click on this little icon here. It's the opening database. Also includes a table base, which I won't bother discussing in this video. What I would recommend you do once you enable this, which you should always have enabled, is click on this little cog wheel and make sure that Masters is enabled. By default, it's Lichess is enabled. You should set it to Masters. So what this is these are basically 2 different databases. The Lichess database is just the Lichess database. You can filter it by time control and rating, but even so, I wouldn't recommend doing so because most games they're just internet games. They're not really that high quality. So definitely recommend you change this to Masters. And this will be taking actual over-the-board tournament games from players rated at least 2200 FIDE. Most of them rated much higher. Most of them are like 2400 and up. So make sure that Masters is set. And then when you're going through your opening, so if we go to the first move, you can see what the top moves are, and it shows how often the white one, black one, and how often it was a draw. So for example, on the very first move, after there were 1 million games played in the database, was e4 as the first move. And out of those 1 million games, it was a draw 42% of the time, white won 33% of the time, and black won 25% of the time. And you can see that was d4 and so on. This is really useful for finding book moves. So the most popular, and usually the most popular moves are going to be the best move. Not always, but usually, at the very least, they're almost always a safe move. So, but you want to still take that with a grain of salt because some of the openings could be a little bit outdated. Stockfish might have better ideas. But generally, if you stick with the top move, you're going to be fine at least. So if we do some obscure opening like h4, you can see that like all these openings have like 1 million games or 500,000. So h4 has only been played, looks like maybe 30 times. I'm surprised there's even that many games over the board. But we can see that, oddly enough, white has won most of its games. But the sample size is so small of 19. If we do like a Gioco piano. Oh, the other thing is, if you want to know the opening name, it says it up here. Okay, but if we do like a two nights, is this Gioco? I can't even remember. Okay, this is Gioco piano. It's been so long. I don't play e5 as black. So, but anyways, if we go here, then we can see that the next move for white, the book move would be c3. That's the top move, and then you can see how many games they were played, and then you can also see the win rates. So that's something that you can also take into consideration when you're analyzing your games. Like maybe previously you would always play knight here. You can see that's never been played over the board before. So probably not a good move. You should generally stick with, I would say, like the top 3 or 4 at least. But what I personally do is I do it generally like. Well, you don't really want to know what I do, but I would recommend doing a combination of both Stockfish and the database for the openings. What I would recommend, if you're torn between well, I shouldn't say that, but just use this as an extra tool when you're analyzing things. Use the database as an extra tool with the engine. Okay, so I think that covers everything of how I analyze my own games. I will do things. I will go into it a lot slower, personally. Like when I look at it, and if there's a move, like if we just go back, let's just do a random position here. Oh, but that's not a great position. Let's just say here, I may really look into things a lot deeper and try to figure out why it's recommending e takes d5. And again, when you're analyzing and you're looking at a recommended move, and it's a big difference, you want to ask yourself, why did Stockfish recommend that? Why is that the recommended move? And figure out, and then answer why. And also, if you make a mistake, figure out why it's a mistake. Why? So when black, let's look here. Again, like when black made this move here, again, this d5 move, why is that a mistake? It seems like a decent move. We're challenging the center. We're opening up our light squared bishop, but why is this a mistake? Oh, and then we figure out, okay, with removing the defender, it's a missed opportunity. Okay, so that's how I analyze games. And personally, for the online games, I will usually just analyze when I found maybe one or two notable things that I've learned. So maybe it's something from the opening. Maybe it was the next main line in the opening. Okay, c3 is the next main line, and try to remember that, and why is that a good move? Or it's figuring out why I made a mistake or a missed opportunity. But generally, once I've found one or two things that I've learned how I could improve from the game, I will stop analyzing. And that's just so I don't get too tired. I mean, because chess is supposed to be fun, and you don't want to spend like your entire like Saturday night analyzing a game, So as long as I learn something, even if it's just one thing, then I consider it a success, and that's enough analysis for me. Okay, so hopefully this helps some people. I know it's a pretty long video, but that's how I analyze my games for the most part. Okay, thank you.